Hello, everybody. I hope I am audible. Okay, great. Uh, Thank you everybody for joining for today's event. Today's FIKA session, we are going to talk about a very crucial and important aspect in application development. For today's talk is about database development strategies for MS SQL Server. So what is database development strategy? What I am trying to address here. A database development strategy is a workflow or a process that we should um, consider when you are creating, updating, and managing changes to a database. So we will be covering two strategies today, and I'll be demoing these two strategies in a high level, and I will not be covering any scripting related activities during this presentation. So in the past, how did we manage our database deployment or database development? Um, Probably we may have uh, one large script or series of scripts ordered in a specific way to be able to deploy some kind of a change into a target database. This large script could have scripts related to tables, views, stored procedures, functions, and many other database objects. So in this particular slide, I have given you a, a portion of the script, and as you can see, uh, in this portion, we are addressing three main elements of the database. But however, what could be an example of a script, a patch script that we are talking here? So for an example, if you want to create some kind of a table in your database, for an example, in here I'm talking about person table. If I want to create a table called person, then I need to come up with a script that creates a uh, person table, and this particular script will be added into your patch script, and the product owner or the client request an additional column into the person table, you may have to append a alter script to the existing patch script. So similarly, if I want to add another change into your database, you have to add another patch script, and the patch script will grow over the time. So if your database is managed for multiple years, this script will grow exponentially, and this won't be able to maintain properly. So what are the challenges in this particular strategy? There is no logical structure for your database objects. Um, for in this particular instance, you don't the person table has been updated in multiple places in your patch script, and uh, at a given point, it is very difficult for us to understanding the real state of the person table. And this also similarly, if you are in a team setup, if you are developing multiple features simultaneously, each feature will have its own database change. And for an example, developer one make a change um, and you add your patch script uh, into your file. And if the developer 2 includes something into the patch script, they both needs to understand what's the uh, what's the change needs to be applied only for his database. So managing versions will be very difficult if you are doing database development in a team environment. So for an example, if you consider a t- uh, team with a 10 developers, and if there all those developers are working on database changes, then it is going to be a very hectic task to figure out which portion of the script I need to be deployed to get the latest database in my local machine. So managing multiple environments is going to cost uh, brings a lot of complexity into database development. If I consider another example, in our environments, there could be series of environments. There could be development environment, there could be QA environments, UAT environments, staging environments, and production environments. All these database servers will have multiple databases. These databases will be in different states, and all these databases may in different versions. So as a developer or a release manager or a deployment manager, how can I figure out how to update uh, a specific database in a specific environment? How can I figure out the change that I need to be deployed into that particular table? This is going to build up so much complexities. So sometimes as a developer, I need to be able to develop something very fast and deliver. Uh, uh, I should be able to deliver that into the production. So in such a case, uh, if you are following this, the old technique of managing one patch script to update your database, it's going to cost a lot of time, and we need to spend uh, a lot of time figuring out what are the changes, figuring out what is the current state of the database. It's very difficult to read. So all these complexities comes with this particular approach. So what should be the considerations that you need to consider when you are developing a database development? One should be The first one should be a proper logical structure. Uh, why do we need this? At any given point, you should be able to figure out what's the current status of one of the tables I want to refer in my code. For an example, the person table, I should be able to quickly check the table and figure out what are the columns I have, what are the constraints I have, what are the foreign keys I have. So similarly, there could be other database objects that I should be able to quickly uh, read and understand. So separation of uh, database objects is a key element. I should be able to uh, see tables. I should be able to see my stored procedures. I should be able to see my functions, users, keys, and so said that we need a proper logical structure, logical separation of all these database objects. And this will also increase the readability of your code. And uh, so in the past example, the person tables state is spread across uh, uh, long lengthy file. So having a logical structure will increase the readability as well. So on demand change detection, if we have a mechanism that we can figure out, okay, then and there, what's the change that I need to be applied for a given database, that would be really important, and that will also reduce a lot of uh, complexity and reduce a lot of time spending on figuring out database changes. And these deployments should be rerunnable, as in if you have a script, if you can rerun over and over and again without mm, failing your database script, it would be really great. And also, when there should be a strategy that we can easily adopt in our development and quickly start and also it will quickly give results that we need. And also another aspect is ability to integrate your database uh, uh, database packages with release pipelines and enable database automation. And overall, this brings the simplicity of database development. So, what are the main strategies that I'm going to talk today here? The first one is entity framework code first approach. Why this? I am pretty sure most of you all have heard about it, and the new generation of developers are really comfortable with this approach. But still, then again, I'm going to talk about this today. And the next one is SQL based data tier application. Data tier application has been there for some time, but I don't see a lot of developers take use of data tier applications anymore. So let's dive into these topics uh, in upcoming slides. First of all, let's take a look at entity framework code first approach. So what is entity framework code first approach? We have seen infrastructure as code. So, but in this case, we are talking about database structure as code. We define a model or the source of truth, and that definition of this model will represent the database. For an example, in this particular piece of code, this is a sample code that I have written. Uh, in, in this code, I am defining set of tables, and uh, in this particular example, we have person table, person type table, and country table. And this class representation will could turn into a database structure with entity framework code first approach. In case if you want to understand uh, okay, what should be the migration would look like, entity framework does that job for us. So what's the one of the most important and one of the most troubling aspect about database development is figuring out um, changes for your database. Um, in the previous slide, we talked about if you have series of environments, it is difficult for us to figure out what is the change for the uh, the change for the specific database. So entity framework, as I said, entity framework can eradicate that part, eradicate our burdens, and he will detect us what should be the change based on the model. model changes you do to your code model. And then based on that uh, change detection, entity framework has capable of coming up with a script or directly applying these changes into a database. So let's move into a, the code example. So in this particular solution, I have three projects, but let's only focus on database development dot code first projects for now. So in here, I am trying to define my model or the the code representation for your database. If I move into, I have defined some classes. So in this particular class, I have two properties. One is ID and other one is name. And similarly, I have defined multiple set of classes that I need to also act as tables in my database. So what will happen here is uh, I am defining my database structure, uh, what classes needs to be included in my database. I am going to define that structure in my database context class. In here, uh, as you can see, I have list down persons list, person types list, and countries list. So these three uh, properties will be representing as classes in my database. And how can the entity framework figure out, okay, what should be the uh, ID of this person table? What should be the data type of this ID property? uh, and what should be the length of the first name? How can I define them? So you can define in entity framework, you can define these configurations using two methods. One is using data annotation and other one is using a um, using Fluent API. So I normally or generally like to use configurations to configure all these additional configuration for your model. In this particular example, I'm going to say my country table name should be the name of the class, and this country table's ID should be ID column. And in here, I'm saying the country tables column ID will be uh, is not auto generated. And in this case, I'm saying the name column is required and its data type is varchar. Why I did specifically mention it's varchar is because there are various string types in a database. It could be nvarchar, it could be varchar, but here I'm specifically saying, hey, uh, name the data type of name column should be varchar and its maximum length size should be 50. So similarly, I can configure uh, my database at tables attributes as configurations, and I'll go through other configurations as well. It's almost similar, and the only difference in this particular table is the ID columns auto generated values. I'll be adding the ID will be incremented by 1 when you are adding a record into the table. And yeah, so this so this is the model. Now let's assume I need to add a new property to my person uh, person table. So I'll try to add age as a new property. So I can define this as a property, and then I should be able to say to the entity framework, we need to, there is a change in our model. Please calculate or figure out what should be the change. So I can use package manager, and I can add a migration. So this will entity framework will calculate what will be the change, and it will add a new migration into my uh, migrations folder. Here it detects that a new column has been added, and the column needs to be added into personal table, and the data type should be int, and it can be nullable false, and default value is 0. So this is how you um, add introduce new changes into your database. And so if you go here here to the table, you can figure out, okay, what is the exact state of my person table. I can see now age is a column of the person table. And also if you go here, you also can figure out what is the behavior of this attributes of this particular table. So it's logically structured and easy to read, and we were able to quickly detect what is the change for this particular uh, model change. So so entity framework for code first approach is really helpful for our database development. So let me show the current database. In the current database, I have person table. I don't have age column in person table. So let's try to migrate into this particular table. So I'll again run a command called update database. And if I refresh person column, now I can see the age column here. So very easily, new changes, we were able to add new changes into this database. So so what if I want to add some kind of data into my tables, or it could be reference data into my application? So I have done a small example here. So if I can configure seed data like this way in my configuration, so by default, when I'm triggering a migration for this particular change, it will add uh, these three uh, rows into my table. So I can show that as well. So uh, this is defined in your code, but entity framework detect this as a data insertion, and the entity framework will add this data into your database. Yeah, so that's about. I'm not saying I haven't gone very detailed discussion on entity framework, but with this approach, you can figure out, okay, we actually can get rid of a lot of complexity issues that we discussed in old way of database development. And let's quickly move on to the presentation, and let's discuss on the next approach. The next approach is data tier applications. What is a data tier application? Data tier application, you can come up with a uh, structure of a database. This will maintain the current state of your database. And how it's going to help us. Uh, this when you build this particular package, you will end up with a uh, result like a DLL, but it's with the extension of DAC. So whenever you are building a data T application, you will get a result as a DAC. DAC will contain, and it has information about uh, the state of the database that you need to have in any targeted database. So if you want to migrate this particular DAC into your targeted database, you can run the SQL package command and generate a database script, or you can directly apply these database changes into a given target database. What's the advantage of this is that on the fly, you have a desired database that you would like to have, and if you run SQL package migration command, then it will generate a script uh, that the responsibility of that script is to match the DACPAC's desired state. So let's go and see what is a data tier application. The data tier application is good. You can export if you have an existing database. You can import all the database objects into your database project. So I have created a database project already. So if I can import it as I can import the database as a data tier application. I can, sorry. So I have already defined a database in my local database instance. It has a set of tables. It has a stored procedure. Let's try to get that information as a database package. So I can specify the database connection string here, and I can import it. So as you can see, once it is imported, all the database structures, database objects is being imported into a folder structure in this particular project. So for now I'll just ignore this particular project. I'll go back to this particular this project because this has been imported prior to my presentation. So in here, uh, there is a logical separation of the database objects. So I have the stored procedures, I have the tables, and how are these uh, uh, what are these files all about? It's the final result uh, of a of the database structure that you want to see. In this particular case, country as a table, I can I can visualize in a designer, and also I can see the uh, create statement for the country table. So similarly, I have all these other tables as well exported into this particular project. And as you can see here, the stored procedures is also being imported in here. So what's the how can I do a change to my database using this particular project? So if I want here to add age column, so I can define and I can come here and add my column. And this will so now anybody come here and see, okay, what should be the what are the columns of a person table. You can see and check and verify and understand the current state of the person table. And how can I migrate this into a uh, into the actual database? For that you can go and build the project. So as I told you earlier, the build output of this project will be a DAC pack. So let me go to my bin folder. You will see a DAC pack file has been generated. If you uh, if you rename, I am going to copy this page file, and I'm going to rename it as zip. And if you extract all here, you can see that this package will have some kind of metadata about the database. In here, you can go and check uh, check the all the modules of your database. In here, it says uh, give me a second. Yeah, in here we have this uh, all the elements listed here. For an example, in this particular XML element, it says, okay, there is a SQL table, and the name of the table is DBO country, and it has all these relationships and columns and properties and their data types. Uh, so with this model, uh, we can run the SQL package command against this particular DAC pack, and then DAC pack, and generate a code uh, to migrate your uh, database structure. So let me again come here and delete all this stuff. Let me rebuild. Yeah. And let's try to publish these changes into the database. I can directly publish the changes into the database. Instead of that, I'll generate a script. So this is a very, we only added one simple line of code, but it's add like auto generated, some auto generated code. And if you look carefully into the script, you will see that we are adding age column into the person table. So this is another great tool, how you can manage your database and also detect changes for your database. Let's go back to our presentation. So what should be the key points in these two strategies? Entity framework is an ORM. What is an ORM? ORM is object relational mapping. What simply ORM does is you instead of writing ADO.NET code or plain SQL statement to get some data from the database, you write some code using your object-oriented classes and create a request, and you will get a response, and response will be auto-populated into your objects, and you don't have to write any SQL. And that's the main objective of an ORM. You should be able to do data manipulations and data retrieval using your object oriented classes. Uh, so why I said that entity framework is an ORM? Yes, it is an ORM, but it also give additional features of this migrations. When you are comparing other ORMs does not have this feature that allows you to generate a migration. For an example, Dapper is an ORM, but it does not support any migrations. So when you are, if an architect selecting an ORM, he thinks about certain other elements uh, more than allowing to have the feature of migration. For an example, uh, Dapper is very is a king of performance, as in it's really high performing ORM and easy to use in an existing database. So the selection of ORM is always depending on the architect and the architecture of your system. And uh, so said that we might not get entity framework as your ORM in every project. So what is the next element is data T application do not maintain the order of the migrations. Let's assume you have to deliver a set of features in one single production release. This production release may have multiple QA releases, and each QA releases you may be releasing a different set of features. Each feature will have its own database change. So uh, when you are creating migrations using entity framework, it always generate a migration against a change, and whatever whatever the change that detects in a specific feature, uh, and the order of the scripts will be maintained. So if you want to give a release to production, uh, always in the same order that you executed these scripts in QA environment will be applied in the production environment. And this will not cause any uh, surprises during production deployments. So if you have if you were able to replicate the exact same steps that you use for QA environment to transfer your database into the desired state, and it should the same uh, in the same philosophy, the production should work as accordingly. And there are in the during the production deployment, you will be not see you won't see any major issues. So that is one of the added advantage using uh, entity framework migrations. But what's the difference between data tier application? Data tier applications contains the desired state. It does not say uh, you need to execute very specific. There is no you can't define a specific um order of the changes that you need to apply in your desired database structure. So what it will be doing is he has the current state and he has the target database, and then it compares the change that needs to be included, um, uh, that needs to be uh, change will be detected by the data tier application, and then uh, SQL package command or the CLI will apply those changes into the production database. So there is a difference. So we don't know. Uh, so QA in the release one, you may have a different script. QA release two will have a totally another different script, and but in the production during the production deployment, you will have a totally different script, but the order of the changes won't be there. So this is something you may have to consider, because you might see some kind of surprises during the production release. So data losses. uh, so it's in case if you in both of these strategies, it's kind of automated way of deploying your databases. And uh, if you do a small mistake in your code, and if it is not properly validated by a lead or an experienced developer, it can cause data losses in the data production database. For an example, if you mistakenly deleted first name property of your uh, uh, database, sorry, in the entity framework class, that column will can be dropped by the entity framework migration. Similarly, same scenario can occur in data tier application as well. So to avoid this, you need to do uh, good code reviews, and uh, the, the developer lead needs to have a proper aware about the structure of in all other environments as well. And that is one key reason that you need to be aware of. The next one is massive data corrections. So in this uh, particular scenario, I would not recommend again the entity framework migration or DAC deployments, because uh, when you are running uh, DAC deployments or entity framework migrations, uh, you don't have a control over the script that you are going to deploy. Uh, and what you need in a massive data correction migrations, you need to have more control over the data correction scripts. Why do we need that? Is because there could be uh, you should be able to migrate tables uh, patch wise, uh, or maybe it might lead into other various issues. So what needs to be and other important aspect of these kind of migration is you need to keep monitoring your environment, your database server. Does the database server has enough memory? Does the database server needs to have enough space? Why this becomes important is when you are executing a you are doing a lot of changes in the database server. It creates log files in your database systems, and that logs files could might expand if you are doing a major transaction, and it could even lead up to like server goes offline because not having enough memory and enough space. So you need to be very careful in these kind of scenarios. So I would highly recommend that you take data corrections, massive data corrections offline, and take the control over it and run a manual script to uh, migrate your data. So the next one is post and pre-deployment script in data T applications. Uh, Post and pre-deployment script always run before and after a database migration. And if you want to insert some data into one of your tables, you can use a post database deployment script. In my scenario, I have used uh, post post deployment script, and in these two particular scripts I am using I am trying to add some data into the country table and to my person type table. In this case I am using a merge script. Why I am doing that is because uh, this script will always run whenever you are doing some migration to your uh, database. So that means if you uh, write a insert statement for a specific ID, and let's assume you ran it yesterday and you are trying to run it again, and then what will happen is he will be trying to add the same ID into the same table again. So that could lead to database failures as well, database deployment failures. So you need to write your pre and post deployment script in a such a way that it can be redeployable. And the key point, next key point is integration with the release pipelines. EF core migrations and data T application both support uh, uh, release pipeline integration, but EF core is already inbuilt coming with the package of the application. But data T application, you should use SQL package CLI to migrate your database. For this, uh, so in order to get this package into your build agents, you need to install that manually. So it is kind of hectic, not hectic, but it's an additional step that you need to follow. Uh, However, these both strategies allow us to integrate with release pipelines. And as of for the conclusion, uh, both of these approaches are really important and really useful based on based on your need. You can choose which approach that you can take to develop your database. So some of the questions that you could ask is my application is the only one accessing the database? Am I using SQL database only as a data store? Will I only be using an ORM to access the database? Am I early on my development cycle and need to validate a business assumption? So in these kind of if you answer yes to these questions, you probably have to go with entity framework, uh, code first approach. But if that is not the case, you can go with SQL Server, SQL Data T applications. So that concludes my session for today. Uh, if you have any questions, you can raise your questions over the Teams chat.
Thanks a lot, Ashanka. It was a great session without doubt. I think a lot of people might have learned a lot. And you made it very simple and very informative as well. So we hope there'll be like questions and like if anyone, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, or you can just raise your hand. We can unmute your mic as well. And yes, let's pick Ashanka's brain. I think we have a question. Is there a way to migrate stored procedure and views in code first approach? So Shehan Patrina asked that.
Yeah, it's a good question, Shehan. Let me share my screen again and show one of the examples. So if I want to migrate a stored procedure, I can create a blank migration. And then in this particular example, I can copy your stored procedure in here and make it as a stored procedure. So let me rename this stored procedure again and show it to you how you can migrate it. So I'll create a new migration. So I created an empty migration, and then what I'll do is to put the same SP, but I'll do an extra step that in the on on the down I can drop the SP. So if I do an update, if I go back to the database, code first, I can see both the stored procedure. I hope I answered to your question. Yeah, so I'll give a little bit more context comparing in both these approaches. So in here, I was able to add some kind of a script, but let's assume I mistakenly added a totally different table name here. I'll say like this. If I build this particular project, I won't get a error because entity framework does not understand at this stage whether this is a valid table or not. But if you try that in data T application, let's go to the stored procedure and I'm going to change this to something else. And let me build this. Okay, it's weird. Uh, it's giving, oh, sorry. I thought it's giving an error, but I'll get back to you on that and I'll update that in the chat later. Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Sorry.
We do have another question from Nalaka. In any case, deployment got failure in production. What are the best way to prevent and best rollback plan?
Uh, ideally, you need to keep your as a when you are especially doing database automation, you need to keep uh, backups. So in data T applications, it's really important that you take a backup. For EF, if there were some kind of a failure, then it will be rollback automatically. And for data T applications, yes, you need to take backups and you need to take precautions on that. And also, you a a developer also needs to be a little bit experienced in this kind of format so that he knows that what he is actually doing during his code changes and it will not lead to any deployments errors. So in the past, uh, in major production deployments, once again steps that I have taken is uh, uh, in a major migrations. For an example, I had to do column level encryption in a database which was like size of 40 GB. That is very, very, it is a huge database. So in that kind of a scenario, what we did was we prior to the production deployment, we did some trial runs to migrate the database with the permission of the client. So it's kind of like an additional step that we took to make sure our scripts are fine and working well. And yeah, so those are the things that you can ask from your client and take permission and make sure that you won't find any surprises.
Thanks a lot for the answer, Ashanka. If there's any more questions, guys, you can shoot. Ashanka is ready to answer. We have maybe another couple of minutes to go. If there are no more questions, we can wind up the session. Thank you so much, Ashanka, for like the lovely session. Obviously, a lot of people would have learned a lot of things certainly. and it's in the spirit of FIKA. I'm pretty sure we shared a lot of knowledge here. And thank you so much for the session, Ashanka, and thank you so much everyone for joining and staying with us throughout to experience the FIKA and get to learn something. And thank you so much, and we'll meet in the next FIKA next month. Till then, stay safe, take care, and have some good coffee. Thanks a lot, guys.